Okay, having understood the concepts like the dynamic typing, the multiple assignments, the usage of the important functions like the type and the ID, it's now time to get a taste of your first ever program. Now that's a big day in your life. So the first ever program, will keep it as simple as possible, right? So we'll try to write a program in Python programming language to add up 3 numbers. Okay, so the program should behave like this. It should prompt the user to enter the values for 3 variables, and your program will carry out the sum operation, and the sum value will be returned back to the user. Okay, so now you should be fairly in a comfortable position to take care of this program, having understood the necessary or the basics of Python programming language. So the first things first, the step number 1 will be prompting the user to enter the value. Once the value has been received, it should then be assigned to the variable. So in order to read the numbers, the values, from the user, you have an all-important function by the name of input. And then that input function, will return a string value. Say before I start the actual program, let me just get this right. Let's say you have the input, the function, and then I have the message, input your name, right? Let's say, I'll just take a very, very simple example, all right? Just get this little towards the right. Okay, this is better. Okay, so this is a function. Again, input is very much a keyword. This function will prompt the user to enter a value. And the value entered will always be of string data type. I want you to get this right. So this function, all in all, will return a value of string type. Now when I say string type, anything that is enclosed in a pair of single quotes. Okay, so generally, when we have to refer to a name, the data type, will have to be text. When we refer to addresses, when we refer to the names of the city's name of the town, these values, will be in the form of string data type. When you refer to the percentages or the marks, they, would be of the float data type. And then when you're referring to your age, we normally, use the integer data type, alright? So this particular function will prompt the user to enter a value, but the value that will be returned and then which will be assigned to A will be strictly of the string data type, right? See, we'll just check it. Let's say the print A and then print of type of A, all right? So we'll just run this and check. Let's say I run this, and then this is the message that will be displayed onto the output screen. Enter your name. Let's say I write pencil. You don't have to enclose this in a pair of single quote. Internally, string values are treated as sequence of characters which are enclosed in a pair of single quotes or double quotes, right? So when you write the names or write the string values, internally, the pencil will be placed, between a pair of single quotes or double quotes, right? So when you press enter, what happens is, the print A, the value of A will be printed, which is pencil, and more importantly, the data type of A is str, all right? But our program is all about adding the numbers, right? All about adding 3 numbers. So we'll have to take the help of another function called int. Okay, so we'll start with A equals the first number. So we need to use this, the int function, and then I just write here first number. All right. Okay, you need 2 brackets, and then okay, after this, do the same thing for the next. B is equal to int and then you have input the second number, right? I'll just keep it short. Okay, something like this, and then I'll get rid of this number. Okay, and then what happened? Okay, this is first number, right? This is first number, and then dot, and then you have a couple of brackets. Okay, and then get the whole thing for C, right? Do not copy and paste it. I want everybody to, write the program all over again. Okay, I'll just change this to C, right? And then I'll change this to third number, right? So what's happening here is I'll prompt the user to enter the first number, but the number or the so-called the numeric, let's say if I enter 5, this particular input statement will treat 5 as not as a number, rather as a string. Remember I told you, the returned value of the input function will always return a value of string data type. So if not for this, what happens is, when the user enters, let's say 5, that 5 will be treated not as a number, rather it will be treated as a string. But the whole idea of the program is to add the numbers. So we need to convert that 5 as a string to 5 as an integer. So this is, the function which will convert the string 5 to the integer 5. So the step number 1 is the user will be asked to enter the value of the first number. Let's say the user enters 5. Till this point, the 5 is an integer. It's a string. It's not an integer. But I have to convert the string 5 to integer 5 with the help of this function. So you have the bottommost rule, right? So the innermost bracket has to be evaluated first, and then comes the outer bracket. So something similar to this. 5 as a string value will be converted to 5 as an integer, which will then be assigned to a variable of a. So finally, a will have the integer value of 5. Same thing happens with the second statement as well as the third statement, right? So, but you need to be careful. Now the question is, what kind of values can I enter? If you enter like, Tenzin, even though it works till this point, but the moment you have the int function, the program will report an error, right? We'll just look into that a little later. So once I have all 3 values respectively assigned to variables of a, b, c, will now carry out the actual operation, right? Sum is equal to a plus b plus c. Okay, so this is very simple. Again, the expression on the right hand side will be evaluated first. So the value of a, b, c will be added, and then it will be assigned to a variable called sum. And then finally we could print, the value of sum, right? So you have print, and then sum is equal to, it's a very simple program, right? So this is a string value. This is a string value. So this string value will be printed as it is. But this is not a string value as such. This is an integer variable. Remember, a, b, c, all of them being integers, the final answer will also be in the form of integer. Hence, the value of sum will be printed. So we'll just try to run this. Now this is the first ever program. It's very simple. Say we run this. Your eyes should be on the output screen. The first number, let's say it is 20. The moment I press enter, this 10 will be assigned, first treated as string, and then it will be assigned to integer, and then this integer 10 will be assigned to the variable of a. Same thing happens with second statement. Let's say I have 20. Okay, so the 20, you see the space here, perhaps because of this particular space, I've left a space here, hence you get this additional space, right? And then third number, let's say it's 30. Now when I press enter, 10 plus 20 plus 30 will be evaluated. 60 as the result will be assigned to sum, and then this print statement will print this first, sum is equal to, and then the value of sum, which is 60. Okay, so this is, a very simple program which adds up 3 numbers, right? It's very simple. But the important thing to be noted here is, now when you run this program again, the value that you enter here should be compatible with int data type. The value that you enter here will ultimately be converted to integer. At the beginning, since this input deals with the string values, any characters, any values that you enter will be treated as a string value. So you will have no problem, with the input statement. But if the value that you enter here is not compatible with integer, if it cannot be converted to integer, the program will report an error. Let's say if I write here Tibet, right? When you press enter, what happens is you will get an error message like invalid literal. So the literal, that I entered as Tibet, went up. The Tibet, the literal, Tibet is a string literal. So that string literal is invalid. Why invalid? Because it cannot be converted to the integer data type, or in other words, it is incompatible with the integer function. Okay, so let's try, another value. Let's say for float, let's run this again. Say if I enter 12.6, 12.3, again I get the same answer. 12.3 cannot be converted to integer, right? So, you need to make sure that, the value that you enter for the input function should be compatible with int, right? So this is the first program. The title of this program is to add 3 numbers, okay? Now let's deal with another, the program. Let's say I would like to calculate the area and the perimeter of a rectangle. Now let's say something very much similar to the first question. Let's come up with another question. The question is, write a program to calculate the area and the perimeter of the rectangle. So you need to think first, how many variables do I need? I need 4 variables. The first one for the length, second one for the breadth, third one for the area, and the fourth one for the perimeter, right? You know the formula, right? So once you know the formula, it's easy to write the program. So the first things first, let's get the length first. Length is equal to, now this time, let's say the values could be a real number. It could, be, the numbers with the fractional values, which means I now need to use the float, not the integer. Alright? So I'll have this, the float function, and then this function is a must, right? And then I'll have a string message called length is equal to, right, 2 brackets, right? One for this and then another for this. So initially when you do the program, you may come out with many errors, but that's totally normal, that's totally fine. Once you start getting familiarized, the programs will, the number of problems, will decrease considerably. Say, I get the length first, and then I now focus on the breadth. Okay, got this level right? Float, and then input, and then you have the breadth is equal to 2 closing brackets, right? It's now time to calculate the area. The area of a rectangle is length into breadth. Okay, so area is equal to length multiplied, where's the multiplication symbol? It's not this, this means letter X, right? So you have this asterisk, where's this? Okay, it's here, asterisk. Asterisk means multiplication, and then you have the breadth. Make sure that you get the spelling right. And then how we calculate the perimeter? Perimeter is equal to 2 multiplied by length, you have length, okay, plus, and then you have the breadth. Okay, it's very simple, right? In perimeter, you're just adding up all the sides. Okay, and then finally, I print the value of area and perimeter respectively. So print, and then area is equal to area, and then print is equal to perimeter. Perimeter is equal to, okay, you have the perimeter. So make sure that you get the spelling right. This is the exact spelling of perimeter. So this is the area. So the spelling should match. Even if you come up with the different cases, big P and small p are totally treated as two different characters. Okay, so you cannot argue the fact that they both are P. That's not possible in programming language. All the programming languages are case sensitive. Case sensitive means small a and big A are totally different, just like how X and Y are different. Small a and big A are totally different because internally, they have a unique code representation for small a and big A. So this is something which you need to take note of. So the first step, should be with regard to accepting the input and then process it, and then finally, you have the output. So these two statements, you have learned this IPO cycle. Everything in our daily life, everything in computers follow the IPO cycle: input, process, and output. So likewise, these two statements are with regard to the input function, and then these two statements are to do with the processing, and then finally, displaying the output. So we'll run this. So when you do it, you may come across some problem, but with the help of the error messages by the Python IDLE, things should be fine. Okay, so where did it go? Okay, it's right here. Just write this little down. Okay. So save the file, and then try to run it. If you do not have a system or a machine at home, that's totally alright. The most important thing is to understand the logic behind the program or the statements. So let's run this, and then you see this, right? Length is equal to, let's say I write 2.5, right? Press enter. Breadth is equal to 1.5. Okay, so when you press enter, I get the area as 3.75 and perimeter as 8. Okay, so if I have some other kind of input values, like say if you run it, okay, let's say if I enter 2, will it work? If I enter 2, because 2 is an integer literal, right? But what you have right here is the float. So the question is, can integer be converted to float? It's really easy. Logically, based on sheer common sense, 2 as an integer, could be converted to float. The equivalent float value, will understandably be 2.0. So you don't have any difference between the values of 2 as an integer and 2.0 as a float. So there is, a compatibility, between the integer and the float. But vice versa, it's not going to work. Because I've just shown you a while back. So let's say when you press enter, it executes smoothly, which means even though this 2, is an integer, basically to begin with it's a string, but this string 2, could be converted with ease into the float. So let's say if you have 1, and then when you press enter, you get the correct answers, but you get the answers in the float data type 2.0, and then you have 6.0. I think the answers are correct. 2 multiplied by 1. So look at this. 2 will be received initially as string. 2 will then be converted to float, and then the value of 2 as a float will be assigned to length. So the second statement will prompt the value for breadth. 1 will be assigned. 1 will be converted to float, and 1 will then be assigned to the value of breadth. So you have the value of length as 2, the value of breadth as 1. And then comes the processing. 2 multiplied 1 is 2, 2 will become the value of area. Likewise, length, the value of length is 2. Remember, 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. And 6 will be assigned to perimeter. So area, this is a string value. It will be printed as it is. And then the value of area, which is 2, will be printed. So area is equal to 2. And then perimeter, since this is a string literal, this will be printed as it is. And then the value of perimeter, which is 6, will be printed. Alright? So this is how you come out with the second program. So you have 2 programs. And then perhaps you could try some other programs like how to calculate the body mass index. Okay? So again, for calculating the body mass index, we have the division in school like senior, junior, inter, based on the BMI. And then the BMI could also be checked whether you are of ideal, whether you are in ideal health condition, if you are underweight, overweight, they all could be based on BMI. So in order to check the BMI, the formula is, if I'm not wrong, right, the formula is BMI is to be calculated as kg divided by meter square. The BMI could actually be calculated as your weight in kg divided by your height in meters. But this should be squared if I'm not wrong. Okay, so you could write a program to check your BMI, but the requirements are the weight in kilogram and then height in meters. So this is the basic formula, right? So this formula will help us to know our BMI, provided you have the value of weight in kg and then height in meter. So how do you take care of this square? It's pretty easy, right? Let's say this is pretty simple. Once you get the weight, assign it in a variable of weight underscore kg, and then prompt the user to enter the value of height in meters. So whatever the user enters as the height value will be assigned to the height ht underscore meter variable, right? So when you actually carry out the calculation, you have to use this division sign, okay? And then you can have, this particular variable multiplied with itself, okay? So that will give us the square of the height, okay? So when you have something like this, height underscore meter multiplied by height underscore meter, and then have it enclosed in a pair of brackets, that is equivalent to the square of height in meters. So this program is again a very simple program. You could try, and then there should not be any reason why you won't be able to do it, why you cannot do it, because it's pretty much the same as the first two the programs, right? So I guess with this I would like to wind up, and then the next class will try to move little further, little deeper, and then there will be few stuff before I'll be done and dusted with this particular chapter, and then the next chapter is pretty big, right? So I'll continue with the same chapter the next bit. Until then, take care. Thank you.